Hey everyone, and welcome back to Remember This Tech. On today's episode, I'm just going to do a short unboxing of a X99 motherboard. And I got this off of Aliexpress, and I figured, well, I'm going to give it a shot and see if it's worth it. It was $37 with free shipping, total, taxes and everything. I'll go over a few of the specs. It's an LGA 2011 3 motherboard. It supports 4-channel memory, quad channel memory, SATA 3.0, USB 3.0, PCI Express 3.0 16X slot. And what this board supports that these other X99 motherboards might not support is it supports a NVMe M2 slot. So that means that you can put in an NVMe SSD in here and run that, which is a pretty good bonus. It'll take Xeon chips as well for that platform, so you might be able to find a great value for this. And it comes with an I/O shield, SATA cable, and a support bracket for like your CPU cooler. Why would you buy this board? Well, if you were going to build an enthusiast or an entry-level or mid-level gaming system with a Xeon processor to save a few bucks, get a little bit more speed from the quad channel memory, get an 8-core 16-thread CPU, or maybe even a 16-core CPU, you want to do rendering. One downfall of this would be that there isn't much support of these system boards anymore. No upgrade path, so to speak, other than a ton of Xeon processors that you can get for dirt cheap. And that's why I got this board. So let's look at this board and get the camera changed around and check it out. It was shipped in this cheap cardboard box, and this is all that was on the board. Sounds like there's something obviously rattling around in here, and I got this from Aliexpress. So, alright, well, this hopefully explains the noises, so I'm happy about that. It's for the CPU cooler. Kind of sits on top of the board, and we have an I/O shield. Plenty of USB ports. Interesting that they would have these. Look like PS2 ports. Integrated audio as well. And your SATA cable, rather short. And somewhat adequate padding. Bubble wrap, and it's good to see that they actually have an anti-static bag on here. Oh, there's padding on the back of the board too, so that's pretty cool. Here we go. So this is the motherboard in all its glory. We don't really have like supreme VRM cooling, you know, so you're probably going to have to rig up some fan for that. Let's go over this really quick here. They have a shield for the socket to protect the pins. You have 4 memory slots for DDR4 memory. This board supports DDR4. That's pretty good. You might be able to snag some DDR4 2400 megahertz server memory. It should support ECC as well. Why not? 32 gigs, bam, there you go. And get yourself an 8-core 16-thread CPU, slap it right in there. Interesting to see how the VRMs can handle that much wattage though from a larger CPU, but it's rated, so hopefully it can. Doesn't ship with a battery, of course, they won't do that, so you have to have your own PCI Express 3.0 slot. And here is the other highlights I was mentioning. Your M2 slot, I don't know the speeds, but supposedly they're PCI Express 3.0. So I'm gonna have to test this in a future video. So if you haven't subscribed now, would be a great time to see that upcoming content. And if you want, give a like in this video. It helps me out in the YouTube algorithm, thanks. We have your 24-pin connector here for power, but we also have an 8-pin additional power up here for delivering more power to the system CPU. Standard cooling, and you've got a plethora of input outputs. We only have 3 SATA connectors here, which should be fine, combined with the NVMe. If you're going for a little bit of gaming, a little bit of video editing, it should be okay. you've got enough room for 3 large drives. On the other side here, we have a decent amount of I/O. Again, you know, that's PS2, so okay, that's fine. I got PS2 keyboards, but many people would not. So it'd be nice to see something else in those positions. But for $37, including tax, who am I to complain, right? So a total of 6 USB, USB 2 and 3.0. You got your gigabit NIC and generic, just regular sound. As far as I know, this doesn't come with any onboard Wi-Fi, so you're gonna have to do your own wireless thing if that's your jam. Standard pinouts for your interface, for your reset and power. And if you see here, of course, it says DDR4. Now, this X99 motherboard may be a dead end as far as, you know, upgradability and support, but you can plop in hopefully a 20-core CPU, 8-core CPU, 16, 14 core CPU, and it will serve you for a long time to come, providing these VRMs don't, you know, crap out. All right, let's take a quick poke around in the BIOS while we can, and you can see that it's fairly well set up in here as far as BIOS functionalities. Hardware monitor, CPU temp, I don't think that's real, but it could be. Smart fan function, PCI gigabyte NIC. So I'm gonna look at this down here. Oops, there's a NVMe configuration. So this is a crucial drive for the NVMe, and you'll see the USB combination. 2.0, 3.0. Let's see the processor. It is recognizing the Xeon 1660 V4. That is cool. So far so good, because I don't think there is any BIOS updates for this board, much less tech support. You can see it says 20 meg of cache on that CPU. And all kinds of stuff. This board seems very packed full of features. And I'm not going to go through everything. Boot up. Fast boot usually causes problems with certain OSs. So just a few of the things I set. Now I'm going to save and exit, and then I'm going to populate the board with another RAM stick and go from there and see what setup it likes, what it doesn't. Maybe it was just the monitor output. I don't know what was going on. But so, alright, I'm back in the BIOS as you see, and I have 16 gig of memory. This is with the first 2 slots populated with DDR 3200 megahertz. Now, it's not going to run it at that speed, but that's what's in there currently. I had to go into the BIOS and disable some settings, and I had to go into the memory configuration and disable a few things because it was halting on boot up, and well, we can't have that. The promote warnings was enabled. You have to disable that. Halt on mem trainer, disable that. Leave ECC as auto in case you're using ECC. Disable the mem test. And a couple other things. Make sure that this isn't, the mem test loops isn't set to 0, otherwise it'll go on forever. So you're going to have to go in here and play around with these settings for the memory, and there's a lot of them. Look for anything that could say error codes or disable startup or whatever. Stop on startup giving error codes, because that'll shut the system down. And it seems like I might have fixed by doing so. We're going to try to load Windows after I test the other banks of RAM. I'm going to put in the 32 gigs of DDR 2400 megahertz, 32 gigs. So test the banks, and if that's the case, then we're good to go. And we can test the Windows 10 install and continue on from there. So that's my brief overview and unboxing of the MUCAI, I think that's how you pronounce it, X99 P4 motherboard. Got it from Aliexpress for $37 shipped with tax. Now, if you're looking to build a enthusiast build, a mid to entry level gaming build, this might suit your needs. It's a micro board, so keep that in mind. You know, you could snag a used cheap Xeon CPU, throw that in there, combine it with a decent graphics card, 32 gig of cheap memory, DDR4, and you might have yourself a pretty solid system. Downfalls, as I mentioned before, there's no upgrade path, you know, no real support going forward. These 2011 3 socket chipsets might have been salvaged from dead Intel boards, and they reused them and made these new boards, because as far as I know, you know, they don't make them anymore. And B, you know, these X99 boards never really supported any of the M2 NVMe, so they got this going for them, and how did they get to that to work? I'm not sure. That's what I'm going to be testing in an upcoming build, and that's going to be exciting. So $37 for this, maybe throw in another $30 CPU, that's, you know, $67. Throw in another $30, that's $100 for like a 32 gig gaming system, minus your video card, you know, things to come. So thanks for coming along and watching this unboxing video of a cheap Aliexpress motherboard, or the X99 P4 motherboard. And thanks for watching. Remember this tech.